Thank you to Saltaire Oyster Bar and Fish House for kindly sponsoring today's video. Hi Ryemarkable Moms, I'm Liz Woods and welcome to Season 2 of Ryemarkable Moms. I begin this season by talking with Andie Raynor. Andie's a graduate of the Harvard Divinity School. She's written 4 books including Incognito, The Alphabet of Grief, A Light on the Corner, and The Voice That Calls You Home. Andie's been a hospice chaplain for over 21 years, and she was a chaplain at Ground Zero, blessing body parts and remains as they were found. She's a United Methodist minister, and she's even a breast cancer survivor. The list goes on and on with her. What I love most about Andie is through all of the challenges and triumphs that she lived through, her message to us is that we all have a gift to give to the world. Before we begin today, I just want to say a special thank you to Daniela, Vilma, and Kelpie at VG Hair Design Studio right here in Rye. They're right next to CVS on Purdy Avenue. They treated Andie and I before the interview today with hair and makeup, so we're so thankful for your services today. And what's so great about their studio is that they use all organic, safe, and natural hair products. Okay, let's get to the interview. Here we go. Hi guys, I'm here today with Andie Raynor. Andie has 2 kids, they're 25 and 22. Don't even know how that's possible. And she's here today with the anniversary of 9/11 coming to share about her experience at Ground Zero. She's also going to share about how she's a hospice chaplain, an author, a cancer survivor. Her list really goes on and on. So thank you so much for being here today, Andie.
Thanks for having me, Liz. Pleasure.
So Andie, you must have experienced so much at Ground Zero. What moments really stick out as the most memorable for you?
Yeah, in the beginning, people thought there might still be survivors under the rubble. The stories were flying everywhere that maybe there were pockets in the subway and food and water down there somewhere. So I would just kind of walk the perimeter of the site, and everyone had a story, whether it was a fireman or a construction worker or a police officer. So I would just be there to hear their stories. And then, as I said, in November, the Red Cross took over the chaplain's efforts, and people would volunteer for various sites, the family centers, the temporary morgue, the permanent morgue. And I really felt that I had more intersection with death than many clergy that I knew being a hospice chaplain, although nothing can really prepare you for being with dismembered body parts. The dead that I blessed were always whole people. So, but I felt very called to serve at the morgue on site. So there, I was part of a team that that worked there in our little trailer. So when bodies or body parts were brought up, the medical examiner would determine what part of the body it was. If it was unclear, a crime scene officer would photograph the remains, and then the chaplain would offer the blessing before the remains were then sent on to the permanent morgue. So that's, we worked in 8-hour shifts. I might follow a Catholic priest who followed an imam who followed a rabbi. So we were a 24-hour presence at the morgue there on site.
Unbelievable work, thank you.
Yeah, one of the very first things just to capture the terror that we all felt, because no one knew whether it was over or not, whether it was going to be another attack. And the very first night, you couldn't drive very far, so I drove my car as far as I could, and then I took the subway. And I remember being underground in the subway. It was so quiet, and thinking, I felt a little unsafe, for the first time. Not that I was going to get mugged, but that the thing would collapse, or there would be another bombing. But that's just that little snippet of knowing, of going down there and feeling the danger. One of the most touching things that I experienced there was in one of the early days. I was working a midnight till 8 in the morning shift, and walking the site and chatting with the workers. And I was chatting with, I believe it was a construction worker who, just moving this huge pile, an unfathomable pile of debris, and wondering if there were, people or bodies or body parts there. And the construction worker I was chatting, he said, see that excavator right there? And I said, yes. And he said, see how after it digs, after it, this is Eli.
Nice.
He's like he goes through it with me. But he said, see how he shakes the bucket of his digger, that he shakes it just a little bit. I said, yeah, what's going on? He said, that's just in case an arm or a leg or a person, he's caught up in the rubble. And the tenderness, that just gentle shake of the bucket there, it just moved me so much. So from the firemen who lost their comrades in arms, to the police officers, to the construction workers who were trying so hard. I also had another young Port Authority officer. He looked like I could have birthed him. He was this big, friendly, definitely in mid-20s. I guess at that point I was younger too, but he talked about how he was present when he believed they found what could be the remains of one of the hijackers. And I was curious how those remains were treated. Did they spit on them? Did they desecrate them in any way? And he said, oh no. He said, we just said to ourselves, this is still someone's son. This was still someone's child. And we treated the remains with the same respect we would treat any other remains. And again, just seeing the best of humanity in the midst of the worst. Yep. And I guess the other little thing which lifted spirits were the dogs that were at Ground Zero, the search and rescue dogs, which really became therapy dogs in many ways because there were no bodies to be found. But you would see these dogs, they were trying so hard to find life, and occasionally they would find remains but not life. And so occasionally in the wee hours of the night, a construction worker or a fireman would kind of half bury a colleague in the rubble, and they'd have the handler come by with the dog, and the dog would sense life and dig. They would dig until they found this body and pull the person, the person out alive, and everyone would clap, and the dog's tail would go up, and everyone's spirit would kind of resuscitate because everyone wanted to find life. And so in a way, the tenderness shown to the dogs was reviving the dog spirit, and then also reminding us of our humanity, of why we were there to care for each other. Wow. So there are just so many stories.
Yeah, I'm sure it's endless, but wow, thank you for sharing that.
Sure. And if I could tell families one thing that's important, is that every piece of every person received a blessing by a clergy person, whether it was a whole body or whether it was a piece of tissue, that every piece of every person that was found received a blessing. And there was always a moment in the morgue where grown men and women would take off their hat, no matter how many times they did that, and a blessing would be offered, and then they would go on with the recovery process. I saw firemen raking through the dirt with rakes with their bare hands, looking for any shard of bone, anything that might help someone identify a loved one. And that was incredibly touching.
Wow. Yeah. So you really have seen some of the worst things of humanity.
Yes.
And yet you're a faithful chaplain.
Yeah.
How do you maintain your faith?
I had to really go to a deeper faith, I believe, after Ground Zero, because you do ask those questions of why. Yeah. You only have to look at the Holocaust to ask that big question of why as well. And I had to surrender my kind of childhood notions that if you're really good, somehow God protects you.
Right.
And so what I came away with is that God has given us this beautiful planet to tend to and to take care of. It's really up to us. We are the eyes and the ears and the arms, the hands of God to take care of one another. So I really just feel that somehow we're always in God's care, that we walk in the shadow of death. But the thing that casts the shadow is life. It's light. The light is there, and so we're walking we may be walking in the shadows, but we're also always in the light. You need light to have a shadow. So for me, I feel like God gives us the strength to get through what comes in life. That God doesn't control things or make bad things happen, but somehow gives us the strength to bear what comes with as much faith and courage and fortitude and kindness as we can muster.
I like it. Like I said in the beginning of the interview, I really love Andie's message that we all have a gift to give to the world. Thank you so much for watching today. Ryemarkable Moms is all about sharing our positive stories and inspiring one another to make the world a better place. And I'm so honored to be part of a community with moms like Andie who are doing that every single day. See you guys soon.